there's a lot of toxic stuff in society that affects you and I, which we don't even really know about. And as much as I've done a lot of research on some of the stuff that exists, things such as BPA and phthalates and other plasticizing chemicals, things such as PFAs and other chemicals that are released from manufacturing processes, all this stuff that affects you and me that is quite hidden and unknown inside a society. You have to do quite a bit of deep digging to actually find out and figure out about this stuff. And if you just go about daily life not really educating yourself on these kind of things, you could genuinely just go through life completely unbeknownst about these things, as much as they will affect you and your family, and especially your generational, and especially your family. A lot of these toxic chemicals, things such as BPA and phthalates, are very reproductively toxic, and they will affect your reproductive organs. They will affect the children that you have, their reproductive organs, and as it goes and gets generationally passed on, it can make your kids' kids eventually become infertile. These chemicals are not something to be sort of joked about and like kind of pushed aside, brushed under the rug. I think it is quite a serious concept. If you imagine how smoking and alcohol are quite genuinely seen as bad for a pregnant woman to have because of how it's known to affect the baby, I think plasticizers are on like a similar level to this in terms of effect. But it's just plasticizers aren't really general knowledge among society, so these things aren't actually considered as bad, even though their chemical effects on the baby actually are just as bad. But they're not necessarily as visible. The baby isn't going to come out like a couple kilograms lower than it should be or something. It's just that when that kid grows up to go through puberty, it's going to develop in a weirder sort of way. It's going to potentially be infertile. It's a hard thing to sort of notice, I guess. And that's why these things are still around and not much is being done about them, I suppose. Even after stuff, I guess, has been said, but it's not really being understood well enough. I suppose that's the scientific knowledge barrier. The thing that really did concern me about society was that I had a conversation with a friend about one of the videos that I made on hexavalent chromium. And there was a scandal about hexavalent chromium when a whole water supply to the west coast of the USA was contaminated with a chemical known as hexavalent chromium, which can do very, very damaging things to your body, to your lungs and to your digestive systems, to your cardiovascular systems. And many people died and had permanently damaging sort of effects, permanently scarring effects. And not only that, you're going to have the psychological effects of seeing loved ones die, and you're going to have the fact that these people would have still been affected in a health sense by this scandal, by the fact that there was a clear scientific negligence from the company. I think it was PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric or something, when they lined their pool with hexavalent chromium. They lined their wastewater pool. This hexavalent chromium seeped into groundwater, and then it ended up in civilians' tap water. And he was like, yeah, this stuff kind of just happens all the time. And that really concerned me, because I suppose we as humans are I was a bit naive to think that this was like a one-time thing, big, massive scandal that shocked the world or whatever. I guess this stuff does happen all the time. I guess there are many, many things that happen where businesses and companies make a mistake that's often to do with science, and the consequence is our health, or the people's health that are affected by this tragedy, their health gets worse, essentially. And that is not a thing that I want for you, and that is not a thing that I want for society. And I suppose if this stuff does happen all the time, how on earth are we going to solve it? Is there actually a way to solve it? Making some kind of market out of this health issue, out of this chemical issue, where the company that made the mistake should, because they still made the mistake, that is still their fault. They should be responsible for then giving people the compensation that they deserve. That is a viable way, and I suppose there is definitely a detectable way to see who is actually affected by these specific scandals that I suppose do happen quite a bit. But that is just for these big one-time scandals where chemicals that we as a society know are quite bad get into the industrial commercialization, get into products, get into food, get into water, those kind of things. And I suppose there is a detectable way to deal with that. But then with things such as BPA and phthalates, I think there is a future where these chemicals can be banned, because stuff has been said about them, research has been done on them, and we know they are bad, but still they are continually used inside of consumer society. So surely there is a way for these things to eventually be phased out of the system. If people know about it, it's not some scandal that's been hidden under the rug. People know about it. I'm hopeful that something can be done in the end about all these chemical things that exist in our society. It's very concerning, but I do actually think there is no one and done way to get rid of these kind of things, and I don't think we'll actually ever be able to get rid of these sort of things completely. Some of them are simply too useful in society for us as a race to actually get rid of them. So you're always going to have to suffer some sort of opportunity cost for the benefits that these things have given to society. But I think some can eventually be phased out, and maybe we can find alternatives. And we should approach the challenges differently depending on what the chemical and what the effect actually is. With phthalates and BPA, I think they can be phased out of consumer society pretty easily. But with these continuous scandals that allegedly happen all the time, maybe making a market out of it and getting companies that made the mistake to pay some sort of compensation, maybe that is the most effective way to deal with that. And if any further mistakes happen with these chemicals, the same process can happen again if it's really detectable, if the effect to third parties is detectable. But with that, I recommend subscribing for more content like this, and have a good day.